Malaysian Airlines. And from there, we had a lot of careers from Korea. These are the Asiana Airlines and Korean Air, and all the low-cost carrier that's flown into Kota Kinabalu. So our partners is basically to work very closely with the airlines, and as of today, from 2 flights, we are now flying 37 flights per week into Kota Kinabalu.
Before I let Ramit talk, and he's from Make My Trip, so for those of you who are not from India, you may not have heard of them till now, but they are, I think, the largest OTA in India. A little similar to C-Trip, and I think C-Trip has an investment in them as well. So they're massive. So if you want to be seen in India in the travel space, you have to have a relationship with Make My Trip. So with that, Ramit, what's your favorite campaign?
All right. So I think I'll take it into two. So largely, I think whenever we think about, I think what we need to do from an, marketing perspective, we broadly classify into 3 main buckets. One is awareness, right? Are we just talking about brand awareness, which is Make My Trip as a brand in the Indian market? So we largely operate in the Indian market. So we treat awareness very differently from, let's say, new product introduction, which is the product trial. And third is basically performance marketing. So typically, I think every company, if I talk about Indian market, majority of your spends go into performance marketing, which will be a 60 to 70% of your money goes into performance marketing. Then rest goes into brand, right? And in between your tactical stuff where you want to do new product introductions, that is the third piece, right? So largely, I'll talk about 2 campaigns. So a success story is, let's say, recently we did, so we are now focusing on alternate accommodations, right? Which is your hostels, villas, apartments, right? So we did one campaign, this falls into the middle bucket, which is a new product trial bucket. So what we did, especially in this, we kind of run this campaign on our social channels, right? So we tried to reach out because we were not either introducing a new brand, so because brand is Make My Trip, so we didn't do awareness. But what we wanted to let people know about is a new product category so that people can do a trial about it, right? So what we wanted to do is that somebody showcasing the experience of the properties so that a person gets to know this is an alternate way for me to take an accommodation. So we adopted social as a platform where we kind of partnered with influencers to kind of speak about the property, right? So that they can, their base or Make My Trip's base on social get to understand the property. Now, what I'm not sure about, so the campaign was successful, but we hope that we see the impact in coming time because this is not a tactical campaign that we see bookings day after, right? Similarly, a non-successful example, I would say that, almost 3 years back, we did one brand campaign which was falling into the first bucket, which is awareness, right? So every year we probably do 1 or 2 bigger brand campaigns to build Make My Trip brand recall, which from brand metric perspective, you track your recall in the market, your top of the mind recall in your dipstick studies that you do. So for that, what we tried for in one of the campaigns is let's just not do very performance-oriented brand campaigns. Let's just not talk about hotel. Let's just not talk about flight because we are a flight, hotel, holiday, all different businesses selling company. So let's just try in one of the campaigns where we talk about travel in journal, right? Where we talk about let's just try to inspire people to travel, right? So what we did, it was a very nice visually storytelling campaign where, in the starting, a family is taking a trip in a lake, in a boat. Then a man is taking his older mother to a trip in a hill. So it was a very nicely put up, narratively done story. But while everyone liked the campaign, right, but it did not deliver on the metrics, right? So if you think about whether it was good video, whether it was a good cinematography film, yes, but did it deliver on the metrics? Probably no, right? So that is why I probably putting it into the second bucket, which we think did not deliver on the right metrics.
So, everybody likes to talk about the success stories, but the next question is about if you had a magic wand and you could kind of change an obstacle to your success, what would it be? Would it be your boss? Would it be your budget? Who wants to go first? Show of hands, how many of you would like to teach your boss to do things better? Boss is a major stumbling block to your success. Agreed? Yeah. Okay, how many of you think budget is a major stumbling block to your success? No? How many of you think agencies are a major stumbling block to your success? Don't be scared. We're not video. Okay, we are videotaping this. Okay, from my panelists, what do you, if you had a magic wand, what would you make to go away? Could we switch off the cameras for a bit?
So I
think Humphrey should take this first.
Popular demand.
Abracadabra, we want 500 million.
Absolutely, budget, okay.
2.6 million. Oh, wow. Nice figure.
Is that your team, the ones who put up their hand about the boss?
Haha, everybody's laughing.
Sure. Ramit?
Yeah, so I think lastly, it's about maybe 20% budget. Nobody keeps a track on the ROI of that. Maybe I think I would want that. Maybe I think probably we'll get a better long-term, we can do a lot of trials and testing with that budget, but eventually maybe we'll get something out of it. But if you kind of only do 98% of the budget to your core KPIs and 2% trial, I don't think nothing much happens.
Okay.
Well, I hope the camera is not on, but I'm going to touch into something really sensitive.
Would you like a piece of paper to cover your face?
Well,
That gentleman has these amazing censored glasses, yeah?
well, for Malaysia Airlines, I think, you know, who don't know about the airline? You know, especially for Malaysian, is true to our heart. We have been around for more than 40 years. I think we were once the most successful airline in the travel industry or aviation. But unfortunately, time have passed, more airlines came into the picture. I can even cite you an example that was given by my CEO, that even Singapore Airlines and those big airlines out there come to us to learn from us, whether it's cabin crew training or engineering training, they all come to us. But unfortunately, the past two incidents in 2014 has caused us tremendous drop in terms of brand. There's no closure. We are still suffering from it. Whenever anniversary happen, it does make us feel really sad as a company and also as a brand out there. Because every time when it's close to the anniversary, our sentiment, social sentiment, always spike really high in terms of negative sentiments. So to rebuild the brand is going to be tough, especially for the market like China, market like Australia, that is very close to these incidents. So if I have a wand, I would definitely ask for this to have a closure so that we can rebuild the brand and fly as high as we can. That's what I would do.
I love the honesty. And yeah, absolutely. I think all of us would love closure for that. It's, you know, still very strong in everyone's mind. Saurabh?
I won't be as, I don't have a tragic story to fall back on. But bear with me on this. What I would really like to change is a lot of these social media network or platforms, if you will. They are giving out an immense amount of data which is absolutely useless. And I'm saying this because I don't know how to prove this to you, but I was one of the first people to actually start using Facebook. I've started, when it actually launched, I knew what it was, I've seen its evolution. I've used stuff like Orkut. I don't know how many people even know what Orkut is. Yeah, like 3, 4.
How many used it?
So all of us dinosaurs, yeah? So if you want to be known as young, please do not put up your hand on this question. But my point here is there's just so much useless data that is going around which doesn't guide the brand in any manner whatsoever. So I would like to clean up that space to offer data that actually matters, that actually makes sense to companies like us. where we can make better strategic decisions on where our revenue is spent and how things are utilized.
So I would just like to add one point to this. I think that's a very pertinent point. I think overall, I think it would be a magic wand, I think for all the marketeers, if you can effectively measure whatever engagement you are doing with, let's say either influencers or let's say you are doing with, or let's say you're spending money on social in a lot of your awareness campaigns. If you can actually measure it, I think it's a huge boost to overall the money you're spending on social or the money you're spending in your engagement initiatives. I think because of the lack in those measurements, companies don't not able to spend beyond a point.
So let me, phrase that question a little differently. Which is your favorite channel? What's working for you in terms of meeting your expectations?
So for us, I mean, brand marketing works, which is our TV, because the large part of India, I mean, the TV penetration, except metros, is still very high. Apart from that, I mean, bread does not mean that we do not invest in the newer channels, but those are the bread and butter channels.
And what about you, Saurabh? Ye who hate Orkut?
The dinosaur. For channels that work for me, for social media, and it is more...
I'm not saying social media, I'm saying any channel. Where would you like to spend your money?
What Ramit mentioned, so Google, but I would add into that mix Naver, which dominates the Korean market, Baidu, for obvious reasons. For all those who do not know, Google does not work in China. Nor does Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, etc., etc. The list goes on. So trying to tap into markets like these, you just have to be aware of certain core, as Ramit mentioned, bread and butter channels. So when your base is solid and your cash flow is maintained, then you can take the risk of trying to do let's say what Partha mentioned before, he's not here with us right now, but being consistently quirky. So for me to be consistently quirky, I have to make sure that my cash flow and my bread and butter channels are maintained. So the channels that I would use, Google, Naver, etc., but on social media, I would spend my money on Facebook and LinkedIn, not so much on Instagram. Be honest with the fact that...
Malaysia Airlines, unfortunately, if you want the answer, it's basically digital channels and social channels, because this is the digital realm. For immediate engagement, even performance, it's all measurable to digital platforms. But if you notice, in some markets might have different penetration in terms of platforms or channels. Like in India, traditional platforms are still very strong, like your, out of home, travel agents are still very strong. In Australia as well, newspaper, radio are quite strong in their market as well. Of course, digital platforms will cover the most in terms of our marketing spend. At least 70% of our spend will go into digital platform. But I will always cater 30% of it into traditional channels as well. Not TV channels. If I have more budget, of course, we will go into TV channel. But digital out of home, newspaper, and radio is still a channel that we will still go into, especially even for tactical. If the Malaysian here, you will know the prime time is still the highest awareness for the brand, especially for campaigns-wise. I would say, it would be more the digital channels, but I'm giving a chance that the traditional channels might come back up again, especially for out of home and newspaper. They will find a way.
Okay, that's positive. Is the person from Hindu here? That's very positive news as well for him.
Can I add?
Yes.
Basically, when we, the government, in 2015, we were instructed to cut our budget. And before that, we were attending trade shows, the usual traditional methods of attending trade shows with our own booth, with chair to face the customers, may it be B2C or B2B. Now, that's the traditional method. But when we were asked to cut our budget in 2015, guess what? We can't travel. So what we had to do was to do work smartly through social media and campaigns, and even invited a lot of bloggers. And guess what happened that year? Our arrivals broke record arrivals. Things happen for a reason, and it happened. And from that time onwards, we started to increase our budget for digital promotion, social media, working out with bloggers to come to Sabah. And when I was asked to take care of India market, India is so huge with 1.3 billion population in India. It is such a huge country, and it's so many states to work in, and it was so difficult. And I told myself, and with my management, I said, if we do one fam tour which contains around 10 to 16 packs, may it be bloggers or tour agent, can you imagine how long it's going to take me to bring everybody, or even to create awareness on Sabah? It's going to take a long time. So when I met Arun of Travel Earth, we discussed and chat about how to start off promoting Sabah. So Arun said, you have to do a big bang in the market, and one of the best way is the convention. And this convention has not been very easy because we had huge challenges ahead, and many sponsors wasn't very sure whether it will work. So we had to explain to them how to work together. Working as a team with everybody was so important. And the digital campaign, as I can see, a lot of awareness on Sabah, and since we don't have direct flights from India to Kota Kinabalu yet, awareness campaign is so important. So please, whoever out there who are not into digital campaign, and if I had a magic wand, I would like to have those above 40 to think millennial. Okay, as you all saw earlier, the arrivals, the largest portion of the group are the millennial group, the 21 to 39. They are the largest, which contributes around 59% of our millennial arrivals into Sabah. So those are the focus that we need to come in. Thank you.
So, getting applause for that. So I'm actually, we've talked a little bit about the vernacular search engines and Korea-specific, China-specific, India-specific. Quick question to the audience, how many of you blog in a non-English language? One hand. Interesting. Sorry? Which language?
Hello?
Yeah.
I blog in English as well as Malayalam.
Oh, awesome.
Bilingual.
Okay. Question for the marketers here. How many of you, have ads in non-English? In any language, Malay, Chinese, anything. You, Saurabh? You too? No, not for you. I'm just wondering in the audience as well. Okay, I'm not seeing any hands. This is interesting because generally speaking in India, if you want to capture the market, there are 8 odd languages that you have to go into, which will then give you a coverage of, 80% of India. But if you stick to English, then maybe you're reaching, 20% of the audience at best. And even that 20% may not truly understand what you said. They just have a general, understanding of it. So that's actually my next question to you all. I mean, do you see non-English media as the next big thing? Anyone can go, yeah.
So one of the first things that when I came into Sabah, I did was to try and understand who our audiences were. So when we understand who our audiences were, we understand where they come from. And when you do that, you understand what languages they are comfortable in. So I don't know how many of you have had a chance to walk around the resort, and for all those who are staying here, you'll see step by step we are moving towards this. So what we are doing essentially is offering not only the signages and the communication pieces that are available in Chinese, Korean, and Japanese, we will later down the line also include Russian. So these are some of the markets that we see people coming in from. So for us to, well, advertise in a different language is very important, but the experience itself, when you come to this resort, and you come here as a non-English speaker, can you imagine how difficult that is? I myself, when I first, before I came to Sabah, I used to work in China. And I worked there for a very long time. When I first started there, I did not know a single word of Chinese. Just for an example, I went to a small store and I wanted to buy a bottle of water. For all those who speak Chinese, I will tell you what I bought instead. The packaging was very similar to a plastic mineral water bottle. I went home, I bought that thing, and it was for 5 or 6 ringgit, which I thought was a very high cost for a bottle of water. And this is about 7 years back. I went to my place that I was staying, opened the bottle, put it in a glass, and took a swig. And when I did that, my entire throat till my stomach was on fire. What I had bought was baijiu.
Baijiu.
Baijiu literally translates to rice wine. So as a non-English speaker, non-Chinese speaker, the amount of difficulty that I faced in my day-to-day life, that is where my direction comes from, to try and understand what an audience or a person or a guest who comes here, what would they like to see? What is the information that they need to make their holiday a real holiday and not a nightmare? So I want to be like the name Rasa Ria, and for all those who don't know, Rasa Ria means experience happiness. So that's what I'd like to provide, to let them experience happiness. We create holidays, we create memories. We don't want to create nightmares. So yeah, so essentially not only advertising, but also closing the loop in experience is very important. So for companies like mine. I don't know how it would work with an OTA, but certainly for Humphrey.
It is now in many languages as well.
Yeah. So for Humphrey and for TJ, it would not only mean advertising in that particular language, but also being focused on providing that sort of experience when it comes to on the ground. So whether can you pay in WeChat Pay, WeChat Pay available, because it's certainly a very large market for paying. Can you pay in Samsung Pay, so or Alipay? So making sure all of these little experiences are present really goes a long way.
You're absolutely right, and we were talking about this earlier. So I have a 10-year-old daughter, and she actually loves airline food. But the reason is because she gets a child meal, which always comes with, an exciting bag or a gift or something, and it comes usually with a Kit Kat chocolate, so that's important. But the thing that's started happening now is that she doesn't actually eat that meal, she eats my meal. And that's because, the Asian airlines like to add the local flavor. So there's usually a Ribena, then there is rice cake of some sort. Whereas when she says child meal, she's hoping that she's going to get mac and cheese and a chocolate bar. And, I understand the local flavor, but then when you're getting, European tourists, Indian tourists, we don't understand this child meal. And the whole point of child meal was to give the child a familiar meal that it'll eat quietly and go to sleep. So now what's happening is I'm eating all of that, and she's eating my nice, Asian meal. But that's actually what, when we say vernacular language, it isn't just the language, it is the whole experience that people are hoping for. And even options which don't exist today, like vegan or vegetarian, if I want my whole experience to be vegan, everybody has to think a little differently, because it's really hard to deliver that. And I speak from experience. We have someone in our family who's in PETA, so they're vegan and gluten-free, and you're like, okay, why don't you just pack your lunch and come, because I have nothing in my house. But, over to you guys. How are you handling this, the fact that there's a lot of diversity in the markets, not just language?
Yeah. So, I mean, especially in India market, if you see, I mean, it's generally we call it India, but I mean, it's India and it's 29 states overall, right? And even if you just start dividing people into different kind of the languages they speak, the cultures they have, I mean, it would be more than 100 different cohorts of users that you would need to think differently before you even start thinking about how do I need to target them. Right. So on vernacular specifically, yes, we have tried from marketing side as well. We tried reaching out to their own native languages. So there is acceptability in certain states. There's acceptability is very high, where people are very much closely attached to their native local language than English or Hindi, right? So we see acceptability, and even I mean in the trip experience as well, right? So there are certain areas where if you try speaking in English or if you try speaking in Hindi, the local population I think doesn't respond very nicely, right? So we have to even take care of the experiences of people when they visit those places, the tour guides that you have. You need to make sure that people understand those sensitivities, right? That you need to speak a certain language, don't need to hurt the sentiments of people around. So all those things you need to take care to kind of build an end-to-end good experience for the user while the person is on a holiday. So all of that matters a lot. I mean, it includes your language, it includes your cultural, it includes your ethnicity, it includes your diverse cultures. So I mean, it's a mix of all of these that we need to take care.
Any thoughts?
Yeah, to airline or travel industry, I think customer experience is very important. This is my experience as a traveler when I was traveling to US, like probably 6-7 years ago. I was going into a retail outlet, and of course my face looked like a Chinese, right? So a very nice-looking Chinese girl came to me and speak to me in Mandarin, asking me, "What can I do for you?" in Chinese. So I told her, I'm not from China, I'm from Malaysia. Oh, then she moved away and she didn't come back and entertain me anymore. So yeah, back in many years, you see, in US or in those retail outlets, they already know the influx of China travelers, and you know they have shitload of money. Oops, sorry. So
You're
yeah,
on camera, live.
So yeah, they are already prepared in terms of customer experience to the China travelers already, and they are out there to serve them. And yes, of course, they will spend more than all of us. So yeah, that's the customer experience. For us, like in the airline, what we are doing is recently we have our caterer to relook at the Indian route meals to improve to cater to Indian travelers. So of course they didn't call me because I'm not an Indian to do the food tasting. They call some of our Indian colleagues to attend the food tasting. So in the airline industry, we are doing ways to improve the experiences, whether it's meals, whether it's other experiences that we offer through the airline. We are doing that to cater to our different target audience as well. So that's what we're doing in the customer experience wise. In terms of the advertising wise, or we experienced one incident when we were doing a digital campaign, a performance campaign, tactical. We did an ad in English to serve a Thai market. And this was targeted, it was targeted to the 45 and above, because it's the front-end tactical campaign. So we did it in English, expecting the businessman or the wealthy man able to read English. But it was so bad. We wasted like 5 figures of investment in performance buying. And then we realized that it's a language issue. Even though they are the rich and the businessmen, they still read in their own language. Doesn't mean that they don't know English, but they are more comfortable reading in their own language. So then we realized and we had to switch the campaign, the visual and messaging, and we saw that increase of clicks and conversion. So yes, it does matter to cater to the different languages or the different target audience as well.
Do you want to add something, or can I have a question to the audience?
I just want to add one thing. I'm so sorry for you not being able to taste the Indian food. You're welcome to our restaurant. We have a great Indian restaurant.
Thank you.
So I have a question, because only one hand went up saying that, we blog outside of English. How many of you think that it's important that all content now is available in more than one language? Okay, this audience doesn't raise its hand for anything. If I asked a question like how many of you beat your spouse, no answers there either. Yeah, so quick question for the audience is, do you have any questions for the panel before we move to the next section? Questions or comments as well? How many of you totally agree with everything that has been said on stage? If your hand doesn't go up, I'm going to point to you and say, hey, tell me what you disagree with.
I think you need to ask that table, they're very noisy.
Yeah, okay, let's pass the mic to the noisy table. Noisy table, please put up your hand so the mic can find you.
They're having their own discussion.
Does the mic reach you guys?
Okay, noisy table, any questions?
There's a question in front as well, please.
Okay, pass.
No, that table has to ask the question as well. Yes, go ahead.
I'm actually on Team Humphrey, but then this question is posed to the other three, from the LM perspective, hotel, as well as the OTA. So all of us engage influencers. How do y'all select your influencers?
I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm very data-driven. While I do certainly trust my gut, and I'd like to believe that my gut is right on most instances, but I certainly do a very deep dive on blogs and influencers. So we use certain tools. There's Social Grader. There are other tools that are available in the market. For me, it's very important to understand not just your following, but how you engage with your consumers, or your followers rather. We were discussing this earlier, and we found we agree on certain points. Is that a lot of people do put up nice pictures of, let's say, the new pumps that come out from Nike that are priced at, let's say, 20,000 odd rupees, which about 500-600. Or about 800 ringgit, more or less. You'll have a lot of likes of you sporting those shoes, not necessarily people going to go and buy those shoes. There are a couple of reasons for that. One, not everybody has the money to do so, first and foremost. Secondly, not everything that you put up, and that's why where I borrow from your presentation yesterday. Curators. Not everybody is an influencer. So while we'd certainly like to believe that we can change opinions, trust me, a lot of us cannot. We cannot change our own habits, let alone other people's opinions. So we have to really take a very deep dive into understanding how your audience engages with you. And when we engage with influencers, we try and measure it not only with engagement, but with how the revenue drives, how the conversions drive revenue. So if we have a campaign, ongoing campaign, we'll try and loop in KOLs to supplement that campaign, not necessarily go out on its own and try and hope that we get conversions. It's a very crowded marketplace, so it's very important for marketers to look into and trust that data.
Before I ask the others, I'm actually going to ask you a different question, which is how do you actually use influencers and curators in your marketing campaigns? But is there any other question not related to influencer marketing at this point? I see a hand, two hands at the back, if we could get the mic.
Yeah, this is not related to influencers marketing. It's regarding since we are targeting Indian market, correct? So is there any plan for recruiting or student exchange program from India to Sabah or to Malaysia in order for us to have internships from India to cater the hotels and service?
That's Humphrey. I think you might be the only person with an answer to this.
Okay, the problem currently is the Indian market has not matured for us, Sabah. Now, the arrivals of Indians into Malaysia last year was 590,000. The year before, they were hitting 800,000, okay? And into Sabah, as you saw my figures earlier, is only 5,606 arrival last year, okay? It's so different compared to the amount of arrivals into Malaysia. Now, we cannot do focused marketing. We can't do even specific program yet because at the moment in time, we are just creating awareness into Sabah. Now, after the awareness has reached to people in India, and the numbers have start growing, and when Malaysian Airlines start to fly into Sabah, you know, we will see more people coming in here, then we can start focusing. The largest numbers of arrival into Sabah, as you all know, are the Chinese market, and they're huge in numbers. And today, from China into Kota Kinabalu is 106 flights per week. Okay, 106 flights per week, and international flight is 206 flights a week. So that when the market start maturing, then we can start going into category marketing and of course student as well into Sabah. But as of now, it's just very general marketing into India market. Thank you.
Can I add to that?
Just one sec, there's one more question at the back as well, yeah.
Yeah.
Then you can answer that one.
This is actually an observation, not a question. You were asking about why there aren't any bloggers from vernacular languages, right? I mean, this is more to that. If you really want to reach out the large non-English audience, I would think radio is a very good means to do it in India. Wherever I've traveled in India, I find radio really reaching out. Then, of course, the big ticket investment would be a cinema. Get a film shot here and that's it.
Yeah.
You have people coming all over. But radio is the low-cost way to reach the large audiences there. It really is engaging.
That's actually a great suggestion because I went for the tours with Bonnier Tours and my guides were, so, you know, when is Shah Rukh Khan coming here? And why is Shah Rukh Khan not coming here? Do you think you could get him to shoot a movie here? It was all about that. And he actually wanted to go to Bombay until I told him that our movie stars don't just walk out the door and shake hands with anybody. So he was very disappointed, but the thing is that he actually spoke Hindi as well, purely because of the movies. So that's like great low-cost marketing. But we're kind of at the end of time, so I'm going to ask this question of how do you actually, you know, integrate influencers, if you do, in your marketing campaigns?
So, I mean, like I said, sorry, I can just add one point to that.
Sure.
I think the next thing you should do is to approach the next upcoming movies and ask them to shoot here. I think it's gonna make your destination popular.
Wow, look at the clap of hands.
So can we change the hashtag? Can we change the hashtag from why not Sabah to why not Sabah Shah Rukh Khan?
No, we should all tweet to Shah Rukh Khan and say, come to Sabah for your next movie. 100 tweets and he will come.
And actually this I'm saying basis research, so jokes apart, this is actually the recent research that we did, that how do people figure out the destinations on where to go, from where do they get because for a lot of people in India, it's the aspiration to travel internationally. For some people, they are already traveled, right? They will figure out unexplored places. But for a lot of people in India, it's an aspiration to travel globally. And a major channel for them to get that aspiration is Indian movies. Like when they see that my star has gone there, and if it is affordable for them, they pick the destinations basis what the stars are covering in the movies.
Actually, to add on that, about a year ago, a event team came to us that saying that they want us to come into partnership with them to bring in Salman Khan, which has really strong followers as well. And he dances and he's huge, muscular. So,
height and size?
No, I didn't meet him, but all the girls were excited. Everyone was asking me, TJ, you got to sponsor this, you got to go in. I said, okay, I will do that. But unfortunately, last minute, he has to cancel his trip here because he was here for a concert. Yeah, but I know how you all feel to bring stars in here. So next time when I have an opportunity, I'll get Humphrey to sponsor as well.
Wow.
Okay, so coming back away from Salman Khan and Shah Rukh Khan, how do we actually incorporate influencers and curators and endorsers into your marketing campaign?
Yeah, so I think lastly, so one is, so I briefly covered it yesterday as well. So it's about, we classify, one is marketing campaign, other is the good content, right? So talking about the marketing campaign, it's pretty much about, I mean, how do we figure out it is by objective, right? What is the objective we are looking to solve for? And accordingly, we basically select that who is the right influencer for this, that what does that influencer stand for, right? What is the kind of content that influencer posts, right? What is the kind of engagement? What is the kind of comments which the person is posting? Like, does the influencer stand for giving nice shots about a place, right? Does the influencer stands for, let's say, giving some tips about a particular place that what you should do? Does the influencer stand about putting up a lot of stuff on unexplored stuff, right? Or does the influencer, let's say, just talk about a good itinerary about a particular place, right? And similarly, what are the kind of places the person has traveled to? And then after that, once you figure out that what that person stands for, then you get into more metric-driven stuff, which Saurabh also talked about, which is what is the engagement rate, what is the genuine follow rates, and then accordingly you pick basis the amount of reach that you are looking to do. Because for everything that you do marketing for any campaign, you start with that what is the overall reach that I'm looking to target. Right now, accordingly, then you will select that which are the influencers we should work with, where there's the right match, plus the amount of reach that we would need from them. Accordingly, we pick those influencers.
So one question which I know a lot of audience would like to ask but haven't. Do you pay these influencers as part of your campaign?
Yes, of course.
Okay, you heard that, and of course, yep. Humphrey, do you use influencers as part of the campaign?
Just more of a fam tour to Kota Kinabalu to spread the words, and we do quite a lot of tactical campaign with major wholesalers that promotes Sabah. So those are more effective for us, and for awareness and branding, that comes together with our communication with all the influencers coming to Sabah. So as of now, this is actually one of the main campaign that we're working with. Yeah. So we're looking forward to the results in which Travel Earth will compile and show us later on.
Great. Did you use?
Yeah. To answer that question, definitely we do use influencers. I'm lucky because we have a social agency to help me to evaluate the influencers. But I think the three key things in getting influencer into marketing or branding campaign is basically looking at three areas, which is relevance, reach, and also resonate. In terms of relevance is to see whether this influencer is relevant to our brand strategy, whether the audiences are fit to be the right audience for us or not. And reach is also based on how many followers they have. So that would be a second point that we will look into when we evaluate influencer. And lastly is how the influencer will resonate to their audiences, the engagement rate, and all that, to evaluate whether is it effectively, to use them for our campaign. That's what we're going to evaluate on. Of course, to answer, we do pay them. Sometimes we barter off with air tickets, just to give them the experience to travel as well.
Saurabh?
We've currently not explored the market of paying bloggers to write about us or promote us. We, however, do support and partner with a number of influencers who match the USPs of what this hotel stands for and what the brand stands for. We do offer our premier services to them and a lot of activities that are on the house, so it's also a brand cost because you put a lot of manpower and resources behind this. So I wouldn't necessarily say that it's not paying because it's covering a large part of the traveler budget. Staying in a 5-star hotel, like we all know, is not necessarily cheap. Apart from the fact that it offers a range of services that we provide to. So while I'm not saying that they should be grateful for all of this that I'm providing, this certainly has a certain cost value to it. So I wouldn't say it's absolutely
So
free.
leaving the money out of it, how do you actually incorporate that into the campaign? I mean, are they a separate channel for you, or is it run as part of something else?
So what I talked to you about earlier and well to this audience was trying to identify geo-market segments. So if there are KOLs, let's say from a market that is, well, I wouldn't ignore a guest that comes from the far north, of course not, but is that something that I'm actively looking at? If I'm not, I will shy away from trying to host an influencer that caters to that particular market segment. I will try and identify my own market segments that I am pushing for. So China, for instance, or India, for instance. Now, I will engage with them more than I would with influencers that are not from that particular geo segment for me.
And is this your individual roster, or is it a Shangri La corporate roster?
Well, this is, Shangri La as a brand certainly provides us a brand guideline and a brand voice that allows us to move forward in a certain direction. However, it's also up to the resorts to try and reach out or utilize all the resources they have to cater to certain particular segments. Because if our HQ, for in our instance, is based in Hong Kong, it doesn't necessarily mean that a hotel, let's say the Shard London, has to follow those sort of corporate policies, because it will certainly not work for them. Because their arrivals and their guest experiences are completely different from, while they are certainly Shangri-La, they're...
Specifically on influencers and how do you engage with brands? Again, I'm going to ask the question, is everybody totally happy with the way things are and you know how to do it? Because when you have tea, you hear a totally different conversation outside, which didn't sound like, everything is perfect. So this is your chance to have a discussion and maybe shape views. Yes.
Yesterday, we were having to find something to shot around near the Rasa Ria place. We go to the beaches and we go to surrounding. And I noticed one thing. If we could hire a person who actually can caught a lizard, because I saw some tourism, there's a lizard walk into the swimming pool and everybody was just surrounding it and everybody just started like, wow, they are not scary about it. They almost want to caught it. If this one and catch it, okay, sorry. So I might see, things like looks dangerous, but yet it creates some experience. Is it that's the one you're looking for?
That's our in-house ambassador.
But is it the lizard is natural or is just planned?
Well, so
is it?
That's an interesting question, but let me try and answer this as succinctly as I can. When you look at Rasa Ria, do not look at only the property. What I mean by property is the 500 rooms that we have. Also look at the nature reserve behind. That is also part of Rasa Ria. So all the creatures that thrive are a part of Rasa Ria. This is why, when I answered your question earlier, it is Shangri La, but it is also Rasa Ria. That is what separates us apart. We are sustainable luxury. We are very proud of our forest. We are very proud of the flora and fauna that thrive in it. And we certainly take a lot of care and attention to make sure that they continue to thrive. And this is the reason why a lot of people come to Rasa Ria. And a lot of people do come to Sabah for a natural beauty, right? So I don't think many of you would disagree on this fact that Sabah certainly stands out amongst many places in the world for its natural beauty. So yeah, that resident ambassador is not being placed, it lives there.
Thanks so much, and I think you captured the essence of Sabah, and I hope that we somewhat capture the essence of travel marketing. And with that, we're done. Thank you so much, and any questions we can discuss outside as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Another very enriching panel.